Don't worry, darling. Let's talk about it. Hey, hi, and hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. How are we liking this setup? It's a work in progress, but it's a work in progress, so don't mind it. Today, we are going to be reacting, recapping, and reviewing Don't Worry, Darling. And when I say all of that, I mean I'm here to defend and protect my baby Harry Styles, okay? I had no clue what to expect with this movie because I don't watch trailers. I don't like to be spoiled. And the only one that I saw was Florence Pugh being smushed by the wall in the window. So I was like, ooh, that looks a little bit thriller-ish. I can do a thriller, so let's give it a try. Imagine arriving to the movie 15 minutes late because you brought your 15-year-old sister and you guys go in and you guys see that the movie theater is like empty. Literally, it's just you two. So you're like, we got the theater to ourselves. We didn't go during peak times, so it wasn't because it was a lame movie or nothing, so don't do my baby. But we go back to the concession stand and the workers are just in their office and they're having a conversation, and my younger sister and I were just like, get us some popcorn, like, come on. So imagine arriving 15 minutes late to this unnecessarily long movie and this unnecessarily confusing movie and thinking that you had just missed something vital to the plot throughout your entire hour and 45 minute stay. Because this is a 2-hour long movie. It had no right to be. No right to be. I'm going to try to explain this movie because they did a terrible job conveying this movie. I'll probably do a longer conversation about this with some friends of mine on my podcast just to discuss everything that I can't fit into this video because I talk a lot. I really do. And I gotta work on that. So come with me as we try to dissect this movie. I have many a note here, okay? I don't fuck around, okay? I don't like writing though. It hurts my hand. I'm not meant for this world. Let's get into it. So in this movie, I wanted to say, like, after writing out multiple scripts for this movie, I tried to do it in parts. I tried to do it in days. I tried to just go through the whole movie. There's way too much and it's for no reason. So I want to say before we get really into the movie that they spend a lot of time in one place when they should spend a little bit more time in another. I don't know why I'm acting like there won't be spoilers in this video, but spoilers ahead for anybody who hasn't seen it. We arrive in Victory and our main characters are Alice and Jack. Alice played by Florence Pugh and Jack played by Harry Styles. We see that they're very, very much in love. They're always in their own world, cuddled up together, kissing, and reports from their neighbors say that they be bumping uglies a lot. I am like skimming through this first part because they drag it. It's dragged. I'll give you guys the elements of it though. We're in the old-timey 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's old-timey. It was around the time that women couldn't vote. I know that's for sure. We're in this old-timey world and Alice is a stay-at-home wife and Jack, he goes to work every day and he makes the money. But a couple of weird elements are sprinkled throughout. Like, their day is kind of like that episode of SpongeBob where Squidward goes and he's with all of his other counterparts. It's kind of like that, but they're all enjoying it until some memories start to pop in their mind. And this only happens to a few people. We'll get to that. So the usual day for the ladies consists of cleaning the house, gossiping, shopping, and a community ballet class run by this very important woman named Shelley, who is married to this very important man named Frank. They go to this ballet class and then we get like mantras and affirmations and just kind of things that they want instilled into these people's minds. Shelley, she says something and she goes, there's beauty in control. There's grace in symmetry. We move as one. She goes and she fixes Alice's posture and her arms and everything like that. She gets her in sync with the rest of the class. We meet a new character. Her name is Violet. Violet is just moving in with her husband, Peter. And we meet them at this party, like this little gathering, community gathering. And Violet mentions that she's kind of out of it And Alice's friend, Bunny, who's played by Olivia Wilde, I believe, she mentions like, oh girl, you'll be fine. It's probably just the desert air. So it's like, yeah, that's what the town doctor, Dr. Collins, told me. But he gave me some medication and he said I'll be all right. At this gathering, Frank is coming out to give a speech. You know, he is talking to these new members of the community. But one of the only black characters in the movie, and it's mentioned like somewhere in the drama that like a lot of her scenes were cut, and I thought that was pretty messed up because it does seem like it. We get like glimpses of her throughout the community. We don't see her embedded in it, and I feel like they took her out of it way too quick. Margaret is her name, and she's in the back and she goes, "Why are we here? We don't belong here." And I'm like, yeah, like this is around the time me and my younger sister came in, so I was like, exactly. What the hell is going on? He's going on, and in his speech, he gives Peter, the husband, the new husband that just moved in, and Violet, Peter's wife, he gives them some special attention, and he's like, "Hey, yo, Peter, what up, bro? Welcome to the team. Hey, yo, we rocking this shit, bro." And then he goes to Violet, and he's like, "Violet, thank you so much for taking care of this man, making him sandwiches at 3 a.m, for waking him up with that sloppy." He was just OD for the women. He was like giving them their praises. After Frank finishes his speech, he disperses the crowd, and Alice, she goes looking for Jack, who just randomly disappeared. I have no idea where he went. But she comes across But she comes across Margaret and her husband. And it seems like he's trying to feed her some pills, but she's knocking him away. She's like, "Get that shit on my face." Margaret's like, "I'm not okay. They're keeping me in here." It's like she's like going through something, and Alice is just standing watching their interaction. And Margaret's husband is like, no, she's fine. She's good. And then finally he just closes the curtain and he's like, okay, no more of this. So Alice, she doesn't even care. She goes off to find her hubby, and she finds him in Frank's closet for some reason, and they end up doing he gives her like the finger guns in Frank's closet at this party. And while that's going on, Frank comes in through the mirror, and I don't know if I made this up in my head or not, but every time I tell people about this movie, I'm like, he comes through the mirror and he goes, "Shh." He makes eye contact with Alice as she's, getting shot up. I don't know if I should say. So after that happened, I was thinking to myself, like, oh God, did I just bring my younger sister to a sex cult movie? Like, I don't know what I just got myself into. But it wasn't. Thank goodness. So we start to see cracks in their idealistic world because Alice, on her usual train ride, she decides, I'm gonna stay for a bit. I want to get some fresh air. And she sees a plane crash, and she gets off the trolley and wanders off into the desert to find the plane crash. I don't know what the hell she was thinking. She arrives at this big hill with a dome, and she goes up to it and she touches it, and she like passes out. She wakes up at home and Jack's there, and she's like, "How did I get home?" And he's like, "Girl, what you talking about? You been home when I got here. I'm cooking dinner. Come on now." And she's like, "Jack, like I saw a plane crash." He's like, "No, girl, I would have heard a plane crash." And he does like this kind of like manipulation thing, because he grabs her by her shoulders and he's like, "You love me?" And I'm like, what did that have to do with anything? But she sees a flash of like a scruffy looking guy, like he's like 5 o'clock shadow type dude, and he's like whispering to her, "The most." And so she whispers back to Jack, "The most." What's that about? The next day we see Alice doing her chores again, but then Margaret calls her and she's like, "You went there. You like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward?" She's telling Alice, like, you went out to the desert. You know what I know. You saw what I saw. You have to help me. And Alice is like, "Girl, you need to pull your shit together. Bye." Click. And then she hangs up and goes off to her ballet class. And this is where, like, she really starts to freak out, because she is in ballet class and she sees in the mirror, instead of her reflection, she sees Margaret. And Margaret, like, bangs her head on the freaking mirror, and Alice screams, and she's like, "Oh God, oh no, oh no, 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 no." Because rumor is Margaret wandered out into the desert a little while ago, And she been a little bit cuckoo in the head ever since. Alice thinks, oh no, I just wandered off into the desert and now freaky shit is happening. What's going on? I don't know why in her head she thinks, let me run back home. But she does. She runs back home, and in her backyard, she sees Margaret standing on top of her roof. This is not funny. I'm going to try not to laugh, but I'm literally getting giggles right now. She's on her roof, and she falls. But in my head, I'm just thinking, I'm like, she lives in like a 1-story house. So, falling from the roof, is she just trying to make sure she got the job done? Like after she's like concussed, and then she's like, yeah, this is for sure gonna work. Regardless, some red jumpsuit men that look like the thumbs from Spy Kids, they come and they take Margaret's body away and they take Alice away. We see Alice and she's talking to Jack. She's like, Jack, I know what I saw. Margaret literally just... And Jack's like, no, she's just at the hospital, she's getting stitches. You need to relax because you're losing your mind. And he storms off. After Margaret, Alice, she goes about her life, but she starts doing weird stuff. Like she's packing away a lunch, and it looks like the ingredients to a sandwich, but she's packing it all away separately in cling film. And then suddenly she's wrapping the cling film around her head. And I think this is to drown out Frank's radio, which she had playing while she was cooking. And she just panics for no reason because her mouth is wide open and she panics and she's like, I can't breathe. I'm just like, poke a hole through. And she like rips it, but she's fine. But that incident causes her to get evaluated by Dr. Collins. Dr. Collins is there and she's asking about Margaret, but he's trying to convince her that Margaret is fine. She's physically fine, but mentally, that girl a little nuts. So we had to send her and her husband away. And if you keep behaving like this, something similar may happen to Jack. And Jack looks a little bit worried. But Alice is just looking at Dr. Collins' briefcase because inside she sees Margaret's file. So Dr. Collins, he leaves. I don't know if he leaves the briefcase on purpose, but Alice takes this chance and she grabs Margaret's file, hides it in the couch. And then just as he's coming back in for his briefcase, she picks it up and she's like, here you go. I was just gonna bring this out to you. TV sitcom moment, but it happens. It is now time for the wretched freaking promotion scene. I hate this freaking scene so much, but I love it. I love the composition of it, I can't lie, but I hate it. So Alice arrives and she's already feeling off, all these hallucinations, Margaret committing suicide and then disappearing, and then, all this stuff. Alice notices that Dr. Collins and Frank is like in the corner cuddling, just staring at her and eyeing her up. Shelly brings out a stripper. Alice is zoning out, seeing flashes of hypnotizing imagery and also of Margaret's death. So she is just a little bit overwhelmed right now and she doesn't want to be here. She starts pleading with Jack. She's like, can we please leave? I want to go home. And he's like, girl, no! Jack literally does not care. It kind of sucks, but I get it. I don't get it. After the stripper finishes, Frank, he goes on stage and he's like, you know what? I didn't just have this party for no reason. I'm promoting somebody. Jack, will you come up on stage? And Alice is like, please don't go on stage. And he's like, and he gets on stage. He goes. So Frank is just talking to him and he's asking him about his loyalty and his devotion and his dedication to the project. And Harry's like, yes, I am all in. I'm with the Victory Project. I love you. So Frank is like, then will you marry me? And he pulls out a ring. Literally. He puts it on Harry. And this seems a little bit spiteful towards Alice. I don't know what they were planning on doing with this, but he's giving her some intense eye contact. He's like, yeah, bitch, I got your husband wrapped around my pinky. Flashbacks. Alice, she excuses herself to the bathroom. She starts panicking, having a breakdown, and this is when we see one of the first clear memories from her. She's looking in the mirror and she zones out, and then we see her cuddling with the man, and it's Jack. And he's scruffy looking. And she's saying, don't say that. You'll get another job. So what's that about? Bunny comes in. Bunny's like, girl, are you okay? Your man is out there getting promoted. He's about to put on a performance and you're up in here missing it. What's going on? Alice, she's panicking. She's like, oh my God, Margaret was right. I went out into the desert. I saw what she saw. I can take you out there. And Bunny's like, no, Because this whole movie, Bunny's been like a diehard for the mission as well. So now, since Alice did that, she's like, oh my God, you're just like Margaret. You're crazy. And she leaves. All the while this is happening, Jack is just having the time of his life on the stage. Or actually kind of the opposite. Because it's like Frank has this man on strings. He's puppeteering this man. He's doing a nice little jig for a solid 5 minutes. Oh my God, I didn't like that. I didn't like my baby being toyed around and played around and forced to do barrel rolls and shit like that. Finally, he finishes his performance and him and Frank start chanting, and all the men in the audience, whose world is it? Ours. Whose world is it? Ours. It's giving cult. It's giving some kind of cult. If it's not a sex cult, it's some kind of cult. The next night, or I don't even know the timeline of this movie truly, they just kind of skip to whatever point matters to the plot. We see that Alice is getting ready for this dinner party that she's been anticipating since the beginning of the movie. I think she mentions that she was making tuna, but Jack says Frank doesn't like tuna, and she's like, oh shit, that was gonna be my centerpiece dish. We see this party finally come to fruition, and all the women arrive, but Bunny's not there. And they're like, hey, where's Bunny? But all the women do is gossip, so I think they know what Alice did, and I think they know, like, I think Bunny gossiped to them, because they know she's not coming. Frank arrives to the party, and Jack and Shelly go outside to chat for a bit. I have no clue about what they could possibly be talking about. So Frank takes this time to go and antagonize Alice a little bit. He comes in, and he's all creepy, and he's pervy and shit, and he's like, I'm sorry Bunny didn't believe you. And Alice, she just like freezes. She's like, and he goes, well, you didn't believe Margaret, so why would Bunny believe you? And Alice is just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I've been gaslit, but I'm now getting confirmation this is all real. Frankie starts talking about how he wants Alice to challenge him. He wants to make sure things are perfect, so he has to see what she got, you know, like come and hit me with your best shot. So at this dinner scene, Alice, she kind of erupts. She didn't plan this out. This was a very, very quick decision in her mind. She bumps Jack out of the head seat at the table, you know, where the man is supposed to sit, because Frank is sitting, you know, at the head at the bottom. At the head at the bottom. So Frank's sitting at one side, Harry's supposed to sit at the other side, and she's supposed to be to his right or left or whatever. And she's like eyeing Frank, and she's like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And she just starts talking. She interrupts everybody's chatter. And for this one, I'm gonna look at my notes. Alice is connecting the dots, but she's doing it in front of everybody, and that's not very well thought out. Alice notices that all the wives are from Philadelphia, Boston, or Chicago. They all vacationed at Hilton Head, Cape Cod, or the Jersey Shore. They all have honeymooned in Niagara Falls or the Poconos or Sea Island, and they all have similar memories of how they met their partner. So Alice is like, Frank put memories in our mind. He wants us to remember what he wants us to remember, but when we start remembering other stuff, he sends us away, like he did with Margaret. And everybody's like, what is she talking about? She's like, think about it. Victory meat, Victory eggs, Victory milk. It's in the food that they make for us. And everybody's like, what is she talking about? Frank, he's like, this happens, you know, she's supposed to be on medication. Dr. Collins said that he wants to put her on, but she doesn't want to. And this is like a symptom of whatever's going around. It's like hallucinations and stuff like that. Alice is desperately trying to make a point that makes somebody believe her. But Frank snitches on her, and he's like, I mean, she did wander out into the desert. And everybody's like, they are just so upset at that because it's been ingrained in them, like, don't go out into the desert. The desert is for men. House, shopping, ballet for women. So Alice, she's trying to just plead to Jack now. She's like, do you even know what the Victory Project is? And Frank shoots back at her, and he's like, do you even know what the Victory Project even is? And she kind of like fish mouth. She like, actually, I don't. But he starts talking about trust, and he says, just like I trusted you in my closet. And I was like, why did he say that? Why did he say that? It's never freaking pointed out as to why he said that. There's no reason, but everybody's just like, oh, this is so scandalous. Alice finally comes out and says it, and she says Frank has created a world. And there's something in his eye when she says this. And I'm like, does that mean she's right or does that mean she's wrong? Because he looks kind of really disappointed at this. Shelly, she's like, enough! And her voice kind of sounds intimidating when you're not looking at the screen. But when you look at the screen and you see her, you're like, she's just so cute. She's beautiful. She is just adorable. It didn't intimidate me at all. She felt disrespected. She's like, we come to your home and we promote your husband and you disrespect us in front of all these people. I'm leaving. Frank, I'll be in the car. Everybody else at the table, they dispersed. And then it's just Frank and Alice left at the table. And he says, I expected so much more from you. And he gets up and he leaves. What? Jack comes back in, he grabs his glass off the table, completely ignoring Alice. And he's like, are you happy with what you just did? She starts pleading with him, let's leave. I trust you, I love you, I believe in you, but frick the Victory Project. You are what matters. You are more than the Victory Project. She starts crying, and he starts crying too, and he's like, okay. And she's like, okay, we're gonna leave? And he's like, yeah. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go pack a bag. And so she goes and she runs off and she's so happy. Jack is waiting for her in the car and she's like so excited. She's like, I even packed a little snack in case we drive all night. And he's 10 and 2 on the wheel, but the car isn't started. He's not moving. And she's like, let's go. And he's like, I'm sorry. Alice, she gets snatched away by the thumbmen. Yeah. And they pull her out of the car. And I feel so bad because she's screaming. She's like, I'll be better. I'll do better. And I'm like, ugh. Felt. So Jack, this scene, we have to talk about this scene because this is an important scene. This scene right here though, they couldn't do a retake. I'm not saying it was a bad scene. It wasn't. The essence was there. He was trying. He knew the emotions he was supposed to be channeling and he channeled them, but just not specific to this situation. Because Jack, he freaks the frick out. He's like, it's just a little bit overdone. It's over the top. And I just felt like with a little bit of direction from the director, which apparently is Olivia Wilde, who apparently he was dating throughout the process of making this movie. Did not know that. Think about it. Like, the writer has a part 2, okay? The director has a part 2. Don't just blame my man Harry, okay? He's a new actor. If you're gonna give him an intense scene like that, then get him prepared for it. Rant over. So when Alice gets taken away, this is time for her to be reset. And I think this is what they attempted to do with Margaret, but she just didn't work. Because it turns out Alice doesn't work either. Dr. Collins and some nurses, they administer electroshock therapy on Alice. And they put the things to her head and they're like, in these zapping moments though, Alice, she regains her memory and she sees her life and she remembers that she was a surgeon. She used to work long hours because her husband Jack, he got fired from his job and now all he does is sit on the computer and listen to incel podcasts. She comes home one night and she's like, hey babe, I'm so tired, just worked a 30-hour shift. And he's like, I'm hungry, I didn't eat. You didn't text me back so I didn't know what you wanted. And she's like, boy, you are a grown man. Make your own food, what are you talking about? So she's really upset, she's pissy. She tries to go and take a shower. The maintenance man couldn't come and fix the water and her shitty man can't do it himself, so she has to just go to sleep and wake up in 6 hours and do it all again. But Jack wants to get a little frisky. He's like, dance with me, girl. Dance with me. And she's like, no, I'm not going to dance with you. I'm going to bed. And he takes that personally. And he took that personally. We see all of this like build up for Alice. She just falls slack on the medical table. And Dr. Collins is like, aight, she's ready to go. Bunny greets Alice as soon as she comes back. But Alice is having memory problems. She can't remember everything from Victory. Alice, she sends Jack off to play a little bit of golf and while she catches up with Bunny. And then he comes home. She greets him at the door as she's been doing every single day when he gets back from work. And he gets frisky as he does every single day when he gets back from work. But she's like, no, come on, I'm cooking. You go put something on the radio. So while he's putting something on the radio, he starts humming this song. Now we heard this song a few times throughout the movie. I don't know how it goes. I can never remember it. And Alice starts humming along. And then boom. All that memory erasing, all that electroshock therapy, it is gone. She has a That's So Raven. No. Alice Cullen. You know how every time Alice Cullen has a vision, she drops something? She drops whatever freaking pot roast she was working on, and she gets the rest of her memories back. She sees herself being sedated and dragged through her house. Oh my God, it's so scary like to think about, but the way that they presented it was kind of... We see the rest of how all this came to be. Jack, he was listening to this incel podcast and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy into that. He basically set up their house with an IV system, a projector, some curtains, some speakers, and an eye holding open thingy that he attaches to Alice, and he inserts her into a simulation. Now, if you recall earlier, Alice said, don't worry, you'll get another job. So, when did that happen? Before or after he sedated her and drugged her and kept her and held her hostage? Because we learned that to be in the town of Victory, he has to pay. Like, this is like a secret, like, black market, underground kind of thing that all of these incel men are getting into. And they're kidnapping women and bringing them into this freaking virtual reality kind of thing. So he has to pay for that. Plus, he has to pay their rent because they're still staying in the same space. He has to pay for food and bills. And he also leaves Victory every day. The men go to work. So it's assumed that he's also going to make money. Meaning that his whole reason for bringing Alice into this world was because men are supposed to make the money. And at the time, he had lost his job and couldn't take care of her. You guys see what I'm getting at? Am I making it clear enough? Is this making any sense to you guys? Because it didn't make any sense to me. He gets a job to force his wife into a simulation where she has no job so he can take care of her in there and in the real world. This is all hitting us like a freaking train, because this is the last 20 minutes of the movie, you guys. We see all of this, and Alice, she comes back to herself in the kitchen, and she's like, what did you do? And he's like, oh shit, she found out. Come here real quick. She's like, don't you touch me. He's like, I made this for you. And he's just trying to convince her that this is the ideal lifestyle. Like, she hated working so much, all those long hours. She was like, no, that's my life. Like, you can't take my life away from me. And she needs a second to breathe. She starts asking about the other women. And he says, I don't know about the other women. And then she thinks about Bunny's kids, because Bunny has 2 kids. She's like, oh God, what about the kids? Are the kids trapped in here too? And he says, no. The kids in here are fake. At this point, Jack turns into a boa constrictor. He's on his knees, wrapping his arms around Alice's midsection. And apparently he's squeezing her so tight that she can't breathe. She starts choking, gasping for air, until she finally just grabs a glass and smashes it into the back of his head. Maybe she's a surgeon, so she knows certain places where to cause the most damage. Jack is dead. He is lying on the cold hard ground. And Bunny comes in and she's... Alice is like, oh my God, Bunny says, girl, I know about all this. I chose to be here. I wanted to be here. Some WandaVision type shit. My kids died in the real world, but they're real here, so I chose to be here. Why would you want to keep the memory of your dead kids? She tells Alice, when men die in this simulation, they die in real life. So the men, they're going to come and find her real body and they're going to take her out. So she needs to go. For some reason, Alice has this Jesus Christ moment where she's awakening the other women in the cul-de-sac. Bunny starts yelling at her, Alice, you need to go. And Alice turns around, she runs, and she gets in Jack's new car, and she whips this mother like she has been race car driving her entire life. Literally, she's driving all the men, all the red thumb men. They start chasing her. She goes to the desert. She's driving towards the hill. It's like a cartoonish chase, I can't lie. They're like crashing into the side of her car. They have her flanked. And then they have one more car coming towards her. You guys, they're driving through a desert. There is space everywhere. As that car is coming towards her and she has two on her side, she hits the brakes. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, hit the brakes, because you're not about to hit me. Fuck that. But the other two cars that were flanking her, they keep going straight and they crash head on with that third car coming towards her. They literally could have gone anywhere else, but they didn't. So Alice, she's driving up this hill. Suddenly her car gets stuck in the dirt of the hill on the side of it, so she has to get out and book it on foot, and she's barefoot. Like, she's running through the freaking desert barefoot, and all these men, they're still driving after her, and suddenly they can't drive either because her car is not actually lodged in some dirt. It's just in the middle of the road, blocking their way. So they have to get on foot too. Alice, she's running, and then she does the dumb thing and she stops. And she looks to see, hey, how far y'all get? They're literally scaling the side of the hill, and she's like, she's like making scared panic noises as she's running, and she starts booking it to the top of the freaking hill. She gets to the stairs and she stops, and we're like, go! She gets another image, but this time it's like an apparition of Jack behind her, and he's like, stay with me. And she like relaxes into his touch for a minute, but then she's like, nope. She goes in the nick of time, mind you, because if she would have had like her hair down and they would have just reached out and yanked her back, she would have been done for. She puts her hands on it and she exits the simulation. How do you guys think this movie ends? Like, that was the big climactic chase scene, and like, what's gonna happen? We get a black screen and we hear Alice breathing. So I was torn with this movie. I want to analyze movies and TV shows and everything like that, but I can't lie. I didn't want to waste my time with this movie and try to give it more meaning than it actually gave itself. This movie just wanted to be a lot of things, kind of like a thriller, a subversion of like the whole like kidnapping trope, the can you trust what's going on? Everything's not as it seems kind of thing. And it was an interesting concept. It was. I loved it. I wanted it to work so bad. I just feel like they spent way too much time in Victory and not enough time, leading up to this drastic change. Like, we need to see a little bit more than one shift and one little petty spat that would lead to somebody literally sedating their wife and forcing them into a simulation. I don't like hearing like when people are like, oh, Olivia Wilde just wanted this movie to be men bad. I don't think that was the point either. I think it's kind of something to consider, like people would do this. People would definitely do this. And we had movies like this with women in that spot, the obsessed movies, like the one that Beyonce did and the one that Bella Thorne did. And, we had those kind of movies where the women was a little bit off her rocker. And, just with the growing technology and everything like that, this is something people would do. The metaverse, the virtual world, the freaking Black Mirror episode where they freaking hung out. It just wasn't fleshed out enough. We didn't really know too much of what was going on until like the last 30 minutes of the movie. They had a couple of ideas that it seemed like they were like, ooh, that would be interesting. Okay, so what's next? And they didn't say like what would make it interesting, what would keep it interesting, what would pay it off, or anything like that. I liked the movie for what it is. I think Florence Pugh, she kills every freaking part that she ever has. I love Florence Pugh. And I love Harry Styles, and it doesn't matter if he's good. I'm gonna love him regardless. So he does have that kind of support in me, I won't lie. But everything that he does is good. I even think that he was good in this movie. I just think the movie itself was not good. I did want to point out that every sex scene in this movie, it's always Jack pleasuring Alice. It's never them having penetrative sex. It's never Alice doing anything back in return. And I think that kind of falls into like that incel, like, just let me drink your bathwater, you know, that kind of thing. So I thought that was an interesting detail because I didn't pick up on it at first. Because we see that in the real world, that one scene of Alice not wanting to get frisky with him, but always in the simulation she's super frisky. So we see like how Jack edited her to, you know, be this kind of different woman that's more suited for this world and for him and for what he thinks a man should be. Some things that didn't get paid off that really bothered me though is, one, the plane crash. We never learn about the plane crash, what it was, why it happened to Margaret, because Margaret also saw the plane crash, why it happened to Alice, what kind of bug or flaw in the system caused that. I don't like that we never figure out what the fuck Shelley meant by this.
Stupid man.
What was that about? I don't know. She literally came out of nowhere at the end of the movie to say that, and we never see her or Frank again. I don't know if she's gonna start running it and start sedating men and putting them up in there. I don't know. I left this movie feeling empty, and I don't like that. That's why I don't go to the movies very often. I don't like feeling like, okay, I just watched something. Cool. I want it to be stimulated. I want it to be, you know, more stimulating than just confusion. Is that too much to ask for? Just to not be overly confused for 2 solid hours, even after watching the movie through another 2 times. This movie had potential. It truly did. The sets were beautiful, the design was beautiful, the ideas, the concept, it was all great. I just really felt like the execution was lackluster. It's very, very much like, oh, it's a simulation. Like you just don't know what to say. I will say, I will point out a little bit more of the stuff that they kind of like filter fed us. You know, Frank's Radio Hour was the kind of hypnotizing thing that puts them into the trance and kind of embeds them with this image, this life that they think that they're worthy of. He was saying that as well, like, you're worthy of the perfect life. You're deserving of the perfect life. It's these affirmations that makes this whole simulation seem real. The dancing women, you know, I guess it's just like something hypnotizing and nice to watch and just indicative of the time period that they're going back to. So it helps them merge with that time period a little bit more, and it's entertaining. I don't know, it's appealing. I'm trying to figure out why they chose that, you know, out of all things. There's also like this blood drop that gets reversed. I'm not sure if that's something that Alice gets to see when she's inserted into the simulation, or if that's just something that we see as she's inserted into the simulation. I don't know if that's a drop that freaking Jack puts into her eye. It literally just came to my mind like, what was that? We see a close-up image of an iris a lot, and it zooms in showing the black abyss on the inside, helping them fall deeper and deeper into that world. And it's like, yeah, see, all of that sounds interesting, but it wasn't. Like, it was like, why is this happening? I'm definitely gonna talk about this movie again sometime, just because Harry Styles, like, I love him. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so sorry this video took so long to upload. I want it to be in December, but what better way to bring in the new year than with a new video? So happy regardless. I will see you guys next time. Bye.